Okay, we're back again. Episode 3. Mate, I don't want to talk about me. We know what's happening in Melbourne at the moment. How are you, man? What's going on?
Not much. Planning a getaway trip this weekend, so quite excited. And have been working on some cool apps that hopefully I can share today.
Awesome, mate. Last time we spoke about something that people don't necessarily put in the same ballpark as Checkbox. What I mean by that is we're using a RESTful API to go through and start a Checkbox workflow. Now, for this episode, we're doing almost the inverse of that. We're taking information, doing it the other way around. We're starting the process from within Checkbox, but then going to that RESTful API endpoint and using Salesforce again. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly.
How cool, man. So talk me through this. I mean, there's got to be some examples where you've spoken to clients and they've said that this is the requirement that they specifically want and this is the outcome that they need.
Yeah. From my experience, there usually sort of like two main themes that emerge in terms of this. So oftentimes clients would have a system of record, right? Central single source of truth system, your CRMs like Salesforce, which is wink, wink, we're going to be showing you today. Your SharePoints and things like this, where you have like your central storage of data or files.
Yep.
And you need to, from an instance of Checkbox workflow, at the end or in the middle, basically send the data for the record purposes. The second theme is essentially when you start a workflow in Checkbox and then continue it in another system. So imagine your customer uses Checkbox to submit their data using our dynamic smart forms, right? They need to do some calculation, number crunching, and then that data flows into Salesforce for like a sales representative, for example, to pick up and work with it from there. Because for them, Salesforce is their native system. That's their main kind of go-to thing.
Absolutely. And when we think about it from a business perspective as well, work doesn't stop. Even though we might go through and complete the form, we want to make sure that even though if we think about it in a basic example, I as a person do something in Checkbox, I want that information to automatically end up in that other application. I don't want to have to double handle information. And I know for both you and myself, the last month or so, it's been that topic, double handling of information, and wanting to eliminate that where applicable. And I feel that this is just absolutely cherry ripe to have a conversation specifically around that. And once again, mate, I mean, you've got examples. We've had some pretty good examples of late where organizations want this capability. Take that information from their Checkbox form and instantly route that information to Salesforce without someone in the back end having to pick up that information and direct it to Salesforce through the various objects that the organization has in place.
Exactly. And so, in our line of work, we're not necessarily saving lives, but hopefully we are saving people from, sitting in front of two screens and like doing this mundane, horrible work.
Saving the fingertips, mate.
Yeah.
Saving the moontan. Now, mate, we've been talking about it. Let's jump into some cool stuff. Show me something. I want to see something that actually has the Checkbox feel to it, routing that information to Salesforce. How's that sound, man?
For sure. I have it in stock for you.
Oh, beautiful. All right.
Let me share my screen. Cool. So what I'm about to show you today is essentially a real prototype I worked on recently. So use case where imagine you are a, payments handling company. And what you deal with a lot is, if clients have some sort of a payments dispute. So for example, a familiar use case for us is, you order something online, but your goods never arrived, right? So you either want your money back or you want your goods to be expedited. So as a customer, you essentially land on some sort of a dispute portal homepage. In this case, you can see just some sort of like a placeholder here with a bit of information, what to have ready to submit your particular dispute. And from here, as a customer, you can sort of progress forward on to capture some information about your particular situation.
Yep.
So let's actually pretend it's a scam.net because our goods never arrive. So some sort of a dodgy financial institution, either just like never send our money to the merchant or, something is fishy here. So contact details, I'm just going to put my contact details, just some placeholders, some sort of random phone number. And let's say, good service is not received. Transaction number, and this is a good, interesting opportunity to showcase some validation here in build checkbox validation. So let's say it's a MasterCard transaction, and we'll just sort of follow the convention. So remember this number, 89456. This is the data that is actually going to be sent to an external system in a couple of minutes. Transaction value, let's say this is a pair of very expensive sneakers, not very, but sort of expensive. And the merchant is not a fraud PTY Ltd, right? So you can see the situation we're in here.
Yep.
And as well, the customer can attach any additional documentation, right? Sort of invoices, further evidence, and things like this. So a case officer, for example, in our user journey in this case, can then pick up that case created in Salesforce system, for example. So in this case, we'll be working with Salesforce, as hinted earlier, get all the relevant information to continue processing this particular dispute. So I'm going to attach a file here and some sort of a random picture, and you can see that essentially I am continuing the topic of picking on your love to McDonald's. So let's say
this was going to come up again. I knew this was going to happen.
So imagine it's, instead of a pair of very expensive shoes, it's a very expensive Big Mac. So let's just attach an example of some invoice or evidence. Right. And once we progress to the next page, essentially the user has the opportunity to review all of their information and then submit it to the next step of the workflow. And in this case, it's some sort of workflow group, senior risk analyst that will be handling this dispute.
Yep.
And so there are two different ways you can go about it, right? You can continue working on it in Checkbox, progress in the workflow, or what we did here in the background is essentially push that data to Salesforce, where we are managing cases. And in this case, each case is a dispute essentially. And you can see that 4:30 p.m. exactly on the dot, we got our scam.net, not a fraud PTY Ltd submission. This is our transaction number and the pair of very expensive shoes. And if we want to also see the attachment that came through, let's actually click on that link with the attached file and see what happens. And I am probably not sharing my screen, but I see a very large Big Mac on my screen right now.
But how cool is that though? So we've started within the Checkbox platform. We've done everything that we needed to do to go through and raise that dispute. We've accepted that, and then Checkbox has automatically gone through, pushed the information to the appropriate system of record. And the one thing that we spoke about prior to the demonstration was the double handling of information. We haven't had to come in and put the subject in. It's taken the description. It's taken the attachment, the world's most expensive Big Mac, mind you, but it's been able to do all of that without us having to have an information worker go through and populate all that information. It's simply just been orchestrated through the Checkbox Studio to route all that information from that form block directly to Salesforce for us.
Exactly. And that's the power of Checkbox as a platform in this case, that it can link different systems, different workflows to orchestrate that smooth end-to-end user journey without someone painfully sitting there looking at two screens.
And the one thing as well, I mean, you look at the last couple of episodes that we've had, it's been very predominant to the Salesforce ecosystem. Now, this is just one example of the endless examples that are available for us to go through and write to CRMs, DMSs, or anything that, once again, as we've mentioned, for the technical folk tuning in at home, anything that has that RESTful API endpoint that we can leverage to write that information directly to.
Exactly. Absolutely. So Salesforce in this case is just a, well-tried and well-known system that is just a good example. But essentially, like you said, anything that supports REST APIs or have an API endpoint, we can send data to.
Excellent, man. That's, once again, super powerful. And once again, removing that double handling of information that organizations are trying to do at this moment, where we're pushing towards automation instead.
100%.
Excellent.
That's all I have to show you for today.
Man, that was a nice quick episode. I guess the question that everyone wants to know for next week, one, are we going to see another McDonald's reference joke? And two, what's on the menu, no pun intended, for episode 4?
I don't know. I feel like I'm getting, it's one of those things when if you repeat one joke multiple times, it's just at some point stop being funny. So I need to come up with something new from that perspective. And from the content perspective, what are we planning to do next time is actually, we've showed how we can get information from a publicly available source. So if users sort of go back to our viewers go back to our episode number 1, there was that ABN lookup. What we are planning to do the next one is actually show them accessing the data from a secure source. Nice. So let's say in this case, again, I don't know, Salesforce, we might use it again, we might not, but essentially if you have your data in Salesforce, for example, your customer data, right? Different records for each of your existing customers. And instead of getting your customers to populate all of their details over and over again, you can fetch that data in a secure and safe way.
That's what they want to hear, mate. That sounds excellent. So till next time, mate, stay safe. Enjoy everything for me whilst we're still in lockdown in Melbourne. But mate, speak to you soon. Thank you very much for today.
Likewise, please stay safe and hit up those McDonald's deliveries.
It's all I can do, mate. It's all I can do. Speak to you soon, mate. Bye.